And we got Joe backstage. So we would like to welcome all the way from North Carolina.
That's right. North Carolina, Carborough, North Carolina. What's good, Pete? How you doing, brother?
Give it up for Joe Nice. So sorry, I don't know what happened with the technical side there. I feel like you were backstage, but I couldn't see you on the screen. And
yeah,
so
you know what happened was I was backstage. I was backstage before you started up, and then when you started up, for some reason it didn't. The two hands didn't shake.
Right.
So it was like, okay, like, yo, I'm backstage. But realistically, I was backstage at another studio when you were at another studio. So I'm in one studio backstage, you're at another studio, and
there you
you're backstage at your studio when I'm in another studio. And yeah.
Well, this shit is confusing to me at the best of times. So now my brain is like scrambled eggs. So
yeah, you already know. And you already know what it is. And look, yeah, man, real quick, let me give a brief shout out to everybody in the chat. I can see you. Out to my man Dylan, out to his lady Danielle. She got one of the masks that I got sent a while back. Out to main man Concert Socks Neil, one of the greatest photographers of all time. He's everywhere. Let me tell you something. That brother does magic with the lens. He's a magician. Trust me. And out to everybody else that's watching on Twitch and all the other platforms, you know what's good.
Amazing. Well, Joe, thanks so much.
Pete, for obviously having me tonight.
Thank you, sir. Well, I mean, thanks so much for coming on. I'm for those that don't know, Joe was on the show in our previous format on Instagram, and so I'm stoked to have him back because Joe, I mean, there's lots of things I love about you, but you're aside from the music and your talent is your positive vibe and just the way that you represent yourself. Is always on point. And so I'm really happy to have you back. So I wanted to kick things off and talk to you right off the bat about music. Can you tell me about the first time you heard, maybe even what record it was, first time you heard that dubstep sound?
That's a cool
and what, how it affected you?
That's a hell of a question. Well, all right. It's going to be story time with Uncle Joe now, kids. We're going to sit around the fireplace, get the marshmallows roasted. We're going to get the graham crackers and chocolate, have some s'mores. Yeah, we're going to dive deep into this. yeah, we're diving deep. This is going back almost, 20 years ago now, probably. I remember I was part of a crew back in Baltimore, the hometown, called the Two Charming Crew. And there was 4 DJs, and we would play UK-influenced bass music at a local club in Baltimore called Sonar. Pete, we talked about Sonar earlier on today. But it wasn't the Sonar that you attended. It was a Sonar in the square in Canton. It's now, I think, it's a Tex-Mex restaurant. But that's a whole other conversation. Right. So there were 4 of us, and I was the guy that was playing this weird bass music at 140 beats per minute called dubstep. But it was barely being called dubstep back then. It was like, okay, what is this weird stuff? And I was always the guy that was the opening DJ. I was the guy that was playing the 8:30 time slot to 9:30 time slot. It was like, okay, well, hey, all right, he's the early guy. We'll just have him play, but we'll let all these breaks and jungle and drum and bass DJs play later on because they're the people that we actually want to see. So the first time, and I was buying records from early, like all these old Tempo records and all the old stuff on Hyperdub. I've got all of that stuff sitting in my storage unit in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I mean, I could go crazy on Discogs if I really decided to sell that collection. So when I went ahead and I said, all right, you know what? Let me start really trying to push this. The first time I really heard bass music on that side of dubstep music on a real proper sound system was at Starscape. And Starscape was a festival that took place in Baltimore. Yep. At Armistead Park. You might be familiar with this because we
played it. We played it one year.
Yeah, so you know what time it is. So it's a 1-day festival. It was right by that Fort Armistead Park off at Exit 1, right, South Baltimore. It was June 8th, 2002. And yes, I remember the date because I still have the flyer in a scrapbook in my storage unit. So we're talking 18 years ago. And there was a tent called the UK Invasion tent. Now, bear in mind, I was already a resident at Sonar in Baltimore, still playing shows here and there, getting a couple of slots at a couple of other bars around Baltimore. Every once in a while, making my way down to Washington, D.C. and playing at Nations or Buzz at Nation, which has now completely been torn down. And I think the Washington National Baseball Park is there now. So the first time I heard it, on a proper loud system, it was Hatcha. Hatcha was there. Now the UK.
Shout out Hatcha.
I mean, people are referring to me as a legend. Nah. That guy's a legend. I'm just sort of internationally known. That guy's a proper legend. So I remember it was, gosh, who was it? It was Orish J, Jada Flex, Emma Feline, Oron. Oh gosh, who was Zed Bias, Hatcha.
Who's Zed Bias?
Yeah, this is Zed Bias during the Mad Slinky era, when just before that Mad Slinky album came out about 17 or 18 years ago. It was an amazing album. So Hatcha came on, and he was playing nothing but dub plates. He was louder than everybody else. His stuff hit a little deeper and hit a little lower, and I'm just like, oh shit, this is what it's supposed to sound like. Because in a club, it has a certain feel to it, but it didn't hit the same. It didn't hit the right way, because a lot of the clubs back then, they weren't necessarily built for playing that proper sound system sound. You know what I'm saying? A lot of these venues were rock venues that kind of every once in a while figured out how to play stuff that for DJs, but they weren't necessarily clubs tuned to have DJs with proper loud bass music playing in their venues.
Yeah.
Hatcha comes on, and he's playing all this old banger and scream stuff, like super old stuff. And me and Hatcha had been corresponding over email for the previous months before that, because I was buying records at Big Apple Records. I was getting test presses sent over and everything. So he goes on, and he's playing all these old banger tunes, and then all these old scream tunes, like the 31 Seconds remix, let me think, the original version of Monsoon, which is on Dubstep All Stars Volume 1. He was playing all these old banger tunes like The Bubble, The Mammoth, just all these old banger classics, and then all these scream classics. And I'm just like,
oh man, banger is so dope.
Oh Jesus God, man, the drums that guy makes, man, I swear to God, I mean, nobody makes percussion like him, still to this day. I mean, the stuff that he did off that Diary of an Afro Warrior album. And let me tell you, if you put on Night right now in a club, and hopefully we'll all be getting back to clubs soon. You put on Night right now. Boop, 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 boop.
Always.
What? Shut the venue down. Close the door.
Yeah.
Shut it down.
Bot has a really great edit of that we've been fitting into our sets for the last couple of years. Shout out Bot. But man, it's incredible.
Yeah. So I mean, so that's Jude 2002. And I was like, okay, you know what? Yeah, like the way I felt that night with the bass just kind of and there was maybe about 50 or 60 people in this tent, but it was 50 or 60 people that knew that they were witnessing something incredibly special. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is what I need to be doing. And ever since then, that's what I've been doing. Basically making music the focal point of my life for the past, 18, 19 years now.
That's so sick. I mean, that's one of the things I love about your story is that there's that Genesis element to it, you know?
Oh God. And then the whole Dub War stuff. I mean, my God. I mean, we could be here for the next hour just talking Dub War stories.
Well, so to get into it, I wanted to bring this up. One of the things the first time we played at we played at Fabric in 2008, and I remember looking at the flyer. You know, they do the 1 month flyer with all the rooms and all the DJs, so it's a huge list.
Yes,
all 3 rooms, all 4 nights of the month.
Yep.
And on the list there was, we didn't have many records out. We might have had we had our bootleg label, but it was we were not known as producers, small town DJs. We were known as DJs,
of course,
or as known as we were. But we looked at the list and we were like, damn, everybody on there is known for their production. And it was and we were like, man, we got to get into the studio and start making some records because, this is the way it is now. And, you're not, in the past it was more DJ centric.
Of course.
And, I'm sure that you've been faced with that as well throughout your career, but you were able to carve out a name for yourself and carve out your whole career based on being a dope ass DJ and having that presence and having those selections. And so do you feel like that was, that it was a more difficult path, or can you talk about that a little bit?
I can. And I don't know if I can answer that question because it's hypothetical. So I don't know what my path would have been if I had been sitting in front of a computer with Fruity Loops or Cubase or Logic. I know Ableton was barely around back in 2002 or 2003. But I think the biggest difficulty was people's closed minds. People were just like, and I remember the comments that people told me, ooh, it sounds like whale noises. It sounds like power tools. Ooh, how come I have to listen to this music on loudspeakers? How come I can't listen to it on my laptop or on my iPod Shuffle? I remember all the comments. And now the same people that were saying that, that stuff back in 2002 and 2003, 8, 9, 10 years later are like, yo, Joe, when's that next Gourmet Beats coming out? Hey, Joe, can you come play my show? Hey, Joe, yeah, what are you doing on May 28th? It's Friday night. It's in Washington, D.C. Yeah, can you come down and play? Like, yeah, no problem. So, I mean, I remember all that stuff. And the biggest difficulty was people's closed-mindedness to the music.
Yeah.
Because I heard and I felt something in the music that was undeniable, but for some inexplicable reason, other people did not see it and or hear it the same way I did. And that's understandable. Everybody is different. So naturally, when you have a predominant sound like a drum and bass or a jungle or house or breaks, and here, or even a lot of the UK garage that was being played, or a lot of the 4 to the floor, Todd Edwards kind of stuff. And here I am coming with all this really dark, deep, low music. It's just like, okay, well, you don't sound like that, so you aren't going to play the time slots they play. Okay, no problem.
Right.
No problem. So I know whenever I got an opportunity to perform, not just play, perform, whenever I got an opportunity to do that in front of a room of people, no matter how big the room was, I made sure that I gave my very best every time out. Because I never knew when somebody was going to see me. I never knew if anybody in the crowd was going to see me for the first time. And you know the adage, there's no second chance to make a first impression. So if I come out and I give everybody a bunch of stuff they've never heard before, and I know how to play it, and I thank God for this brother MC Twisty, because MC Twisty was the MC that I used to work, and I wish we were still doing shows together. I wish we were doing shows right now. And I would love to do a show with him immediately, because he was the guy that, like, just MC wise, just knew how to get everything going live and get everything moving, but then kind of keep it cool so that I could get loose. My brother Twisty was a godsend, for real. And then the other godsend to be back in the day was Jua Kali, who was from the Dub War days. And Jua and I got an interesting story because our parents are both from Trinidad. So when the first time I heard him talk, I'm like, man, what, you Trini? He goes, yeah, man, I'm from Trinity. I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like, my parents are from Trinidad. So we instantly clicked. And that's the whole Dub War side of all of this conversation. But yeah, my biggest thing was just not having people accept what I was doing musically. And it was actual music, but I never gave up and I never quit. And here I am later chopping it up with you.
But you also, I love that you've kind of prided yourself on being an underground artist as well, which is, I'm sure that was like, what's your take on how did you feel about the bro step explosion? Like, did you, cause I know from our standpoint, I mean, it's kind of like a vacuum and everybody wanted to hear like a certain sound with bangers and drops, but at the same time, it shone a light on dance music in general. So even some of the underground kind of niches and scenes were getting a little bit more shine as well. So and I mean, people think, oh well, I don't, look, bro step was never my flavor, because I didn't like the music, and what just wasn't my thing. Yeah, I just didn't necessarily like music that was constantly bangers every single time and big drops. And then from predominantly what I saw from DJing, especially in those days, DJs who played bro step, was a lot of just intro outro mixing. It was, okay, let me mix the intro into this right around the break. 4 bar, 8 bar blend. Okay, chop, drop. And it was like, okay, wow. Okay, rewind, do it again. All right. And then, okay, let's play it again, play another 24, 32 bars. Okay, we're at 48 bars.
Okay, start to bring in the intro on that 49th bar. Okay, 4 bars, 8 bars, bring it in. Okay, we're at the break. There's this quiet break. Okay, fade out the other tune, drop. I'm like, oh my God, this is really boring fucking mixing. Okay, well, how about holding blends for 32 bars? What about some bass switches? How about a filter? Give me a little reverb. Give me something more than just intro outro mixing. So, and it was just like, okay. And then, yes, and the word you used was interesting because you said it was a vacuum. I like it, but I'm going to use a slightly different term. It was more of a black hole rather than a vacuum.
Right.
Because a black hole, once something enters that celestial body called a black hole, it's dark. It's incredibly dark in a black hole, and then there's no light that gets into it, and everything just gets sucked in, including gravity, and nothing gets out. And it just seemed like Brostep was a musical black hole for a time frame. It was just like, everybody just got sucked in, and it was just like, oh my God, is everybody playing Brostep now? Whatever happened to having melodies and actual percussion and hi-hat patterns that made some sort of sense and made your shoulders wiggle and made your ass shake a little bit? Whatever happened to a bass line that actually was low instead of a bunch of mid? But at the same time, I'm thoroughly appreciative for everybody that was involved in Brostep back in those days. I really, truly am. And I'm never going to knock anybody's hustle and grind. And everybody that played it back in the day and they got to tour around the world and live their dreams and do their thing. Hey, congratulations to all the brothers and sisters that did it. More power to each and every one of them. It just wasn't my thing.
Yeah. Yeah. But, you know, to be honest, I find myself appreciating your style and your sound and that style of dubstep more so now almost than ever. Like it still sounds so fresh. Some of those old records from the early 2000s are you know, they still sound so great, and they're timeless, which, you know, it's difficult to say that about a lot of different strains of dance music. I agree. And I think back in the day there was the technology, and I'm saying that given that a lot of the software programs have advanced themselves over time. But back in those days, the music technology wasn't necessarily as robust as it is now. And I think a lot of the producers back then, a lot of the records that were being made back then, they felt more musical. Yeah. They felt more musical. And you listen to a lot of underground dance music now, sure, the production techniques might be improved, but the musicality may not necessarily be as prevalent. Sure. You know, it's kind of like basketball, where, you know, you watch basketball in the 80s, where if you watch the Boston Celtics or you watch the Philadelphia 76ers, you watch the Detroit Pistons, the Bad Boys Pistons of 1989 and 1988, or if you watch the Lakers in the 80s, they weren't necessarily better. They're not the athlete LeBron James or Giannis Antetokounmpo is, but are they better basketball players? Probably. And that's kind of the corollary, the comparison between musicality 15, 20 years ago and basketball maybe 20 or 30 years ago. Right. And they had more swag too. Definitely, without a doubt. Oh, no question. Magic Johnson was playing in Los Angeles wearing a fur coat. What you need a fur coat in 78-degree weather, Magic? What are you talking about? Man, I there's this book that I got to recommend. It's called The Breaks of the Game by David Halberstam, and I think it's out of print, but you can get like used copies online. And it talks about the ABA in the 70s, and there's one guy in specifically called Bad News Barnes, who played for the St. Louis Spirit in the ABA, and he used to show up to the games wearing his uniform with a fur coat and a McDonald's like Big Mac, and he would show up in the dressing room and just like roll in eating a Big Mac, and then just like take off his fur coat, go on the court, and score like 40 points. But there's some incredible stories. Yeah, these are dudes back in the day. They weren't even stretching. They're like, okay, I mean, again, you see where I grew up. I grew up in Baltimore, and one of my favorite sports team of all time, and I watch my share of soccer. My favorite sports team of all time was an indoor soccer team. It was the 1983-1984 Baltimore Blast. Oh,
Yeah,
Sick.
yeah. You got to look and look. If you look up the 1983 or 1982-83 Baltimore Blast jersey, it's an ugly jersey. It's one of the greatest jerseys ever made. It's
man,
it's this white rugby shirt, but it's got these multiple shades of orange, and so it goes from like creamsicle orange to light orange to Elmer Fudd safety vest orange to safety cone orange. And it's got this soccer ball logo, but it looks like it's exploding. It's this Baltimore Blast. And you'd always hear, and these were regular people. They you'd see one of the players working as, a produce guy at a local grocery store. You see another guy as a bank teller at a local bank. But then you'd always hear these stories about two Yugoslavian players. One guy was Mike Stankovic. The other guy was Stan Stamenkovic. And you'd hear stories about Stan Stamenkovic eating pizza at Little Italy and smoking a half a pack of cigarettes, then walking to the Civic Center, smelling like cigarette smoke and Natty Bo, which is the original beer of Baltimore, scoring 3 goals, going back over to Little Italy and eating a bunch of pasta at Sabatino's or Verlegge's, then going back home. You'd hear stories about this, and it's just like, could you imagine if athletes now did that? It's like, oh yeah, I'm at the local Fridays or local Chili's. I
know. Well, it's like Doc Ellis throwing the no hitter on LSD.
Oh man, yes. Yeah. Are you kidding me? You couldn't do that now.
So Joe, I wanted to ask you about some of your streams you've been doing. Can you tell the Good TV crew about some, because I mean you haven't been doing DJ streams as much from what I can tell, but you've been focusing on a lot of topics. I mean you're a student and a student with with degrees, and I feel like you're using that to help educate people about issues through social media. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't touched a pair of turntables since March 14th of this year, because you remember, I mean, I was living in Canada at the time. I was living in Strathcona in Vancouver, and my turntables, my mixer, monitor speakers, all of that gear is still in Canada. So all of that stuff is still up there, and I'm here, and I can't get up there to get my stuff, and it's going to cost an arm and a leg to ship that stuff, and no one's playing shows. I don't have that kind of money. Probably going to cost, a couple grand, maybe more, to ship all that stuff down. So I'm right now without my turntable, so I haven't been doing any live streams. So what I've been doing basically ever since I got back to the United States, which was March 23rd of this year, so I've been back in the US a little more than 8 months now, is just these daily conversations on my Instagram, and I call them live and direct chats, because I noticed that there was a lot of people that have been completely disconnected, not only from other people, but themselves. And for some inexplicable reason, using this whole DJ platform that I've cultivated over the past almost 2 decades, for some reason, I have this ability to connect people. And now I'm able to connect people non-musically, which has been even more of a challenge, because there's 2 things that I think that connects everybody. It's music and food. And right now I don't have music because I don't have my turntables with me and a lot of my other stuff. So I've been able to, I noticed people just want to talk about whatever is on their mind. And I've always been able to have conversations with people, and people seem to open up to me. And I still don't know what it is about me that makes people feel that they feel compelled to tell their complete life stories to me. But that's what's been happening.
I can see it.
Yeah. So ever since then, I've just been like, hey, you know what? Let's just talk about some stuff. Let's talk about whatever you want to talk about. And the live and direct chat series has been going on. And I've been quite active with protests and activism locally, because and people, and I think the common misconception is, oh, well, Joe's the guy that, plays all these shows. He's got all these dub plates. He's been all these countries. You see him on Instagram. He's flying from here, flying there. But just like you said, you said I'm a student. I mean, I've got 2 master's degrees. I've got 2 of them, and I did 2 master's degrees in 4 years while in the middle of a divorce and moving and having a record label and still flying 100,000 miles a year. So I've got all this education, and I'm like, you know what? It's time to use this education for more than just bragging rights.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff that's happening right now, not only with, politics, but the racial division that we see in the United States, the income inequality that we're seeing around the United States and around the world. And we're seeing protests that are taking place globally. It's not just in the United States and then with the indigenous people, the Mi'kmaq in Nova Scotia, the Canadian Maritimes, or the Wet'suwet'en in the British Columbia, dealing with the pipelines. There are people protesting around the world and fighting for humanity, freedom, equality, and survival, and their rights that they deserve as citizens of their nations and countries. So what I'm seeing, so I'm like, you know what? Let's really start talking about this. So my friend Catherine one day was like, hey, who wants to do a live with me to talk about stuff? And I was like, hey, me and Kat are friends. Let's talk about it. So that's how the Joe and Kat chat series became a thing. And every week we've been doing these conversations about issues that we see that are taking place around the world. And we centered them with an idea of having some sort of framework to offer solutions to a lot of the problems, or at minimum bringing awareness to the problems, because a lot of people don't understand what color, for example, colorism is, or what capitalism is, and how the Human Development Index is directly related to capitalism and colonialization, or what racism actually is. Or the most recent episode that we did was Thanksgiving and racism. And we talked about the history of Thanksgiving and why Christopher Columbus was an absolute terrorist and nobody should be celebrating him, and why we should be celebrating indigenous people and family. That's why I was like, hey, you know what? Let's call it Togetherness Day or Family Day or something else, but just not Thanksgiving, because the whitewashing of United States and, quite honestly, Canadian history, it's disgusting, and more people need to stand up for it. And what I'd like to see more of, and again, I can't tell people what to do, but what I'd like to see more of is from all of our artists in our community and communities standing up, because the more that we take a stand for what is right, I think the sooner that we'll be able to get back to doing what we love doing. Because I sure as hell like playing shows. I sure as hell love doing that. And I'd love to get my stuff again and start playing music again. But right now, I think at least as far as I'm concerned, there's more important stuff than just having a bunch of dub plates and sitting in first class seats on United Airlines.
Yep. Well, I mean, to me, it's you're doing really good work. And I mean, I've learned a lot from following you and from watching some of your streams. I posted a link in the chat. Yep. And I think you're currently on Instagram, right? But you're moving the show over to Facebook. Is that correct?
Yeah, I am on Instagram. My Instagram is where I've been doing basically everything up until about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. It's Instagram.com/JOENICEDJ.
Yep.
I'd say about a week to a week and a half ago, I tried to go live and I couldn't go live. So I have been shadow banned from going live on Instagram. I've been I've been censored, and I sent messages to Instagram. Instagram has not replied, and the conversations that I've been having, not only via video with Kat, but some of the conversations I've been having with people on the live and direct chats in recent weeks and or months, it's become increasingly political and, quite honestly, increasingly critical of everybody in government, not only the Trump administration, but quite honestly, it's easy to be critical of the Trump administration because that's low-hanging fruit, but critical of Joe Biden and Senator Kamala Harris. So my whole objective is to make sure, hey, look, this is what you're getting into if you vote for either of these parties.
Yeah, keeping everybody honest, I suppose. So are you gonna? I feel like I love being on Twitch compared to Instagram. I feel like you would thrive on Twitch. I'm gonna lobby for that. I feel like if you need any help getting set up on Twitch, I'm here for you. And I mean, I'm no tech genius, but I could give you a couple tips.
Yeah, and see, the thing is, and I appreciate that, but I'm anti anything Jeff Bezos.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Anti anything him, because
that makes sense.
I think Jeff Bezos is the reincarnation of Lex Luthor. I think he's inherently evil, and
he looks crazy. Yeah,
or the dude from Austin Powers, the evil guy from Austin Powers. I forget the brother's name, right? But
Dr. Evil.
Dr. Evil. Thank you.
Played by and he's actually it's an impression of Lorne Michaels, who's the producer of Saturday Night Live.
Yeah. And I'm like, you know what? I sure. I mean, I've had people saying, "Man, why don't you go on Twitch? You smash it. You smash it." I'm like, you know what? No, because I'm against oligarchs that continue to, take billions and billions of dollars from oppressed people, and that includes using his online streaming service to get my message out there.
Yep. Well, that being said, I urge everybody in the chat right now to follow Joe on all the platforms, and you won't regret it, and you'll come away with it with more knowledge, and there's always stuff of value happening over there. So Joe, I appreciate you, and I appreciate what you're doing online, and thanks for coming on Small Talk.
Yeah, man, anytime, and thanks to everybody that was watching. Appreciate each and every one of you, and out to everybody that ever see me play somewhere, out to everybody that's dapped me up or hugged me or bro hugged or fist bumped or whatever. It is what it is, and it's real quick story. I know you got to get going soon, and I hear the kids in the background, and I hear every once in a while I hear the dog barking. But it's interesting because the last time I played a show, I was in Sarajevo, Bosnia, and it was March 14th, and then a couple of friends of mine over there, we did an interview together, and my friend Nanad asked me, he goes, "Hey, Joe, what if this whole COVID thing, what do you think about it? And what's going to happen?" I'm like, "Bro, I don't know. But then I just had the sun was starting to set, and I had to fly later on that day back to Istanbul, and then wait in Istanbul's airport for 17 hours to get back to the United States. And then I said this to him, and I didn't, I remember saying it, but then I was like, wow, I did just say that. I said to him, I said, you know what? I don't know what's going to happen, man. I don't know when we are going to play any more shows. And I said to him, I said, but you know what, Nanad, if I never play another show again, I'm okay with that, because I've done a lot, and I've gone much farther than I've ever imagined I would ever go with music.
Yep.
Here I was 18 years ago, just hoping to play a couple of shows in Baltimore and around Washington, D.C. Here I am all these years later, flying 100,000 miles a year and visiting 48 countries. And I said to him, I was like, and don't get me wrong, I'd love to visit about another 15 or 20 more. But I said to him, I was like, you know what, man? I mean, if I never play another show again, you know what? I can be like, hey, you know what? I'm all right, because I've made my mark. I've done my part. And there's a whole lot of people that have said, hey, you know what? Yeah. The first time I heard dubstep was from Joe Nice.
Yep.
I saw Joe Nice play at Shambhala, and he smashed it. Or I remember Joe back at Bass Coast in 2017 at midnight at the radio stage. Oh my God, unbelievable. Or wherever it's been. And when I get messages like that, or when I see people come up to me and say these kind of things to me, that's the reason why we all do what we love doing. It's so we can light that fire in somebody else, so they can shine bright like we've been able to shine bright.
Yep.
And then again, like I said, bro, it's like if I never play another show again, it's cool. But don't get me wrong, the fire's still inside. I'd still love to go ahead and mix it up on 2 decks or 3 decks for 90 minutes, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever, whenever. But it's cool.
I mean, Joe, Canada loves you. Canada's got mad love for you, and I hope we do get to see you play in the forest sometime, sometime sooner rather than later.
And look, man, I know the Canadian national anthem, so I'm not going to be out here. I'm not going to be out here singing it, because that's a whole other conversation. I can't.
Well, play it in your set next summer at the fests, and we'll hang out. And
yeah, man,
we'll chill.
Definitely.
All right, thanks, Joe. I appreciate you, man. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, brothers.
And we'll see you soon. All right, give it up for Joe Nice. Oh man, that was so tight. I love that dude. He's always he's got such a great perspective on all things, whether it's music or politics. I mean, I could chat with him for literally 5 hours, but we're gonna keep it rolling. We got more guests today. We've got more show. That was a surprise jump in from Justin Martin too at the start. So, we're bringing the heat today. And our next guests on the show are our Canadian homies, our great friends. And these guys are legendary up here and now starting to spread out around the world. They're always bringing it. They're fun and funky dudes. And everybody, please make some noise right about now for Dave and Tim from Ski Tour.
Hey,
it's just Dave.
It's just Dave. It says right there on the title. Oh, it is literally just me now. Hey, everybody. That's just me. Don't worry about it. See you, Tim.
Hey, Dave. How you doing?
Oh, so
I'm having trouble adding Tim. Hold tight. Let me see if I can figure this out.
I'll keep talking. I'm just about to say that it's really funny how Joe was just saying that like how excited people are when they saw him at Shambhala, or how excited people come up to him and say, I saw you at 2017 Base Coast. I was trying to remember what year it was. And it was that 2017 at the radio stage. It was like, it gave me such an appreciation for that style of dubstep. Like, that set was like phenomenal. There's like a photo of, I think Jake, Dub Conscious. Tim, you made it.
Yeah, finally. Those bouncers just wouldn't let me in the green room.
Sorry,
yeah,
my
what
tech skills
back there?
Tech skills are so lame.
Shotgunning black cherry nudes in the back there, or what?
Definitely nothing black cherry. Ugh, the worst.
Jim, or Dave, that's the first time I saw Joe as well, and I mean,
dude, he's
right
so
away. I was
animated.
like, oh, this is the dude.
The best. Like every single time, like we were right behind him. It was like Jake, myself, and a bunch of other amazing people, and every time he'd get a record out, and he's so fast. He'd like whip it up, look at us, wipe it off, and literally he'd be the other record's playing. He takes the other one off, puts that one on, adjusts the needle, drops it, and literally just like slams it in, and it just like every time, and then would look back at us, and we're all just going losing our mind. I've never seen any DJ like that before.
I love DJs like that are I mean it's that old school like Eastern Seaboard like kind of like there's like that old school like New York style where you're slamming records in, but doing it like smoothly and precisely and with flow and man, I love that style of DJing so much, and it's rare.
It is rare. For sure.
I've never seen it. I was like, this is the best thing ever. And I was like sober as the judge as well.
So the lesson is, anybody out there, if you get a chance to see a Joe Nice DJ set and you haven't seen one, go see him play when we go see people play again. I don't know, when we have shows.